Welcome back to another episode where we explore the language of business. And today, we are diving into something that you use every single day, probably without even thinking about it. We are talking about the present tense. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. The present tense? That sounds basic. But here's the truth. Mastering when and how to use present tenses correctly can completely transform how professional you sound in meetings, in emails, and in everyday business conversations.
That is absolutely right. And I think the reason this topic is so important is because the present tense is everywhere in business communication. Think about it. When you describe what your company does, when you give updates in a meeting, when you write an email about a project, you are using present tenses constantly. And the difference between sounding clear and professional versus sounding a little off often comes down to choosing the right form.
Exactly. So today we are going to break down the two main present tenses that you need in business English. We are talking about the present simple and the present continuous. We will explain when to use each one. We will give you lots of real examples from emails, meetings, and business conversations. And we will also look at some common mistakes that professionals make and how to fix them.
And by the end of this episode, you will have a much clearer understanding of how these tenses work in practice. So, let us start with the present simple, because this is probably the tense you use most often in your professional life, even if you do not realize it.
So the present simple is what we use when we talk about things that are generally true, things that happen regularly, or facts about how something works. In business, this is incredibly useful. Think about how often you need to describe what your company does, what your role involves, or how a process works.
Right. So, let me give you a classic example. If someone asks you what you do at your company, you might say something like, "I manage the sales team for the European region." That is present simple. You are describing your ongoing role, your regular responsibility. It is not just happening right now in this moment, it is what you do as part of your job.
And this is how we talk about companies, too. We might say, "Our company manufactures automotive parts," or "We supply components to major car manufacturers." These statements describe what the business does in general. It is their ongoing activity, their identity as a company.
That is a great point, Alex. And this extends to describing how things work within a business. For example, you might explain a process by saying, "The finance team reviews all purchase orders before approval," or "Our system sends automatic reminders to clients." These are things that happen regularly as part of normal operations.
Now, one thing I want to highlight here is that the present simple is your go-to tense for facts and permanent situations. When you are in a meeting and you need to state something that is generally true, you reach for the present simple. For instance, if you are discussing your team, you might say, "The team works remotely 3 days a week," or "Our office opens at 8:30 every morning."
And in emails, you use the present simple all the time. Think about how often you write things like, "I confirm our meeting for Thursday," or "Please find attached the document you requested," or "I understand your concern and will look into it." These are all present simple structures.
Yes, and here is something important about emails specifically. When you want to sound professional and direct in written communication, the present simple is extremely effective. It makes your message clear and confident. Compare these two sentences. "I am wanting to confirm the meeting," versus "I want to confirm the meeting." The second one, with the present simple, sounds much more natural and professional in business writing.
That is such a good example because it leads us to a common mistake. Some verbs, we call them state verbs, typically do not work well with the continuous form. Verbs like want, need, understand, know, believe, prefer. In business English, we usually use these with the present simple. So you would say, "I need the report by Friday," not "I am needing the report by Friday."
Right. Other examples include, "I know the client well," not "I am knowing the client well," or "I understand the situation," not "I am understanding the situation." These might seem like small differences, but they have a big impact on how natural you sound.
Absolutely. Now, let us also talk about how we use the present simple to describe schedules and timetables, because this comes up constantly in business. When you are talking about fixed schedules, official timetables, or planned events that follow a schedule, you use the present simple. For example, the conference starts at 9 o'clock, or the flight leaves at 2:15, or the board meeting takes place every quarter.
And this is useful in emails too when you are confirming arrangements. You might write, the workshop begins on Monday and runs for 3 days. Or, the deadline falls on the 15th of this month. Using the present simple here makes these facts sound definite and official.
Now, I think this is a good moment to transition to the present continuous, because understanding the difference between these two tenses is really the key to using them correctly.
Agreed. So the present continuous is what we use when we talk about things that are happening right now, in this moment, or things that are happening around the current time, even if not at this exact second. In business, this is essential for giving updates, describing ongoing projects, and talking about temporary situations.
Let me give you a straightforward example. Imagine you are in a meeting and someone asks about a project. You might say, "We are currently working on the new product launch," or "The team is preparing the final presentation." These sentences tell us about activities that are in progress, things happening now or in this current period.
And that word currently is a good signal word for the present continuous. Other words and phrases like at the moment, right now, this week, this month, these often appear with the present continuous. So you might say, I am handling several client accounts this month, or we are updating our systems at the moment.
That is right, Alex. And in business meetings, the present continuous is incredibly useful for status updates. Think about how often you need to tell colleagues what is happening with your work. You might say, I am reviewing the contract with legal, or we are negotiating terms with the supplier, or the IT department is installing new software across the company.
And notice how these sentences give a sense of something being in progress, something that started before now and is still ongoing. This is different from the present simple, which describes what generally happens.
Exactly. Let us look at a clear contrast. If I say I manage the marketing budget, that is my regular responsibility. It is my job. But if I say I am managing a special project this quarter, that suggests something temporary, a specific task I am doing right now that is not necessarily my permanent role.
That is such an important distinction, Sophie. The present continuous often carries this idea of something temporary or something specifically happening during this period. So when someone joins a company temporarily or is covering for a colleague, you might say, she is working in the London office this month, or he is leading the team while Maria is on leave.
And in emails, the present continuous is perfect for explaining what you are doing or what is happening. For example, you might write, I am writing to follow up on our conversation, or we are currently experiencing high demand, so delivery times may be longer. Or, I am attaching the documents you requested.
Wait, Sophie, you just said, I am writing to follow up. But earlier we said, I want to confirm sounds more natural than I am wanting to confirm. So how do we know when to use which form?
That is an excellent question, and it gets at something really important. The difference is in the type of verb. Write is an action verb. You can be in the process of writing something. But want is a state verb. It describes a state of mind, not an action you perform. So with action verbs like write, send, work, prepare, review, the present continuous is perfectly natural. With state verbs like want, need, know, believe, the present simple is usually correct.
So let us list some common action verbs that you will often use in the present continuous in business contexts. Working, preparing, reviewing, discussing, developing, implementing, analyzing, presenting, negotiating, updating. These all describe activities that can be in progress.
And on the other hand, state verbs that typically stay in the present simple include want, need, know, understand, believe, prefer, agree, disagree, mean, remember, own, belong. Learning to recognize which category a verb falls into will help you choose the right tense automatically.
Now, let us put this into practice with some realistic business scenarios. Imagine you are in a weekly team meeting and your manager asks for updates. Using a mix of present simple and present continuous, you might say something like, "So the project is progressing well. The development team is working on the final testing phase. We expect to finish by the end of the month. Currently, I am coordinating with the marketing department to prepare the launch materials."
Notice in that update, Alex used is progressing and is working to describe ongoing activities. But he used expect in the present simple because that is a state verb describing his belief or prediction about the future.
Exactly. Now let us think about emails, because most business professionals write multiple emails every day. Here is an example of how you might use both tenses in a single email. In the opening, you could write, "I hope this email finds you well." That is present simple because hope is a state verb. Then you might continue, "I am writing to provide an update on the project timeline." That is present continuous because you are describing the action you are performing right now.
Then, in the body of the email, you might write, "The team is making good progress on the deliverables. We are currently in the testing phase. Our standard process includes 3 rounds of quality checks." The first 2 sentences use present continuous for ongoing activities. The last sentence uses present simple because it describes a standard process, something that generally happens.
And to close the email, you might write, "I understand you need this by Friday, and I believe we can meet that deadline. Please let me know if you have any questions." Here, understand, need, and believe are all present simple because they are state verbs.
This is so helpful because it shows how naturally these tenses work together. You do not use one or the other exclusively. You mix them based on what you are trying to say.
Absolutely. And here is another scenario that comes up often: small talk and casual business conversation. Imagine you are at a networking event and someone asks, "So what is your company working on these days?" You might respond, "Well, we are expanding into new markets this year. We are particularly focused on the Asian market right now. Our company specializes in logistics solutions, and we work with several major retailers."
In that response, you used present continuous for the current temporary activities like expanding and being focused right now. But you used present simple for the general description of what the company does, specializes, and work with retailers.
Right. And this mix is completely natural. Native speakers do this without thinking about it, and once you get comfortable with it, you will too.
Now, let us talk about some common mistakes and how to correct them. This is where many professionals can really improve their business English.
One mistake we hear frequently is using the present continuous for permanent situations. For example, someone might say, "Our company is producing electronic components." Now, if this is temporary, if they are producing these components just for this period, then the sentence is fine. But if this is what the company does permanently, it sounds more natural to say, "Our company produces electronic components."
Another common mistake is the opposite, using present simple when you should use present continuous. For example, saying, "I work on the report right now," instead of, "I am working on the report right now." When you add time expressions like right now, at the moment, currently, these signal that you are talking about something happening in this moment, so the present continuous is correct.
Here is another one I hear often: forgetting to conjugate the verb correctly in present simple with third-person singular. So instead of saying, "She manages the team," someone might say, "She managed the team." This small error is noticeable in professional contexts. Remember, for he, she, it, and singular nouns, you add s or es to the verb. The company operates in 15 countries. She handles all client communications. It takes approximately 2 weeks to process.
And with present continuous, the common mistake is forgetting the verb to be or using the wrong form. For example, I working on it instead of I am working on it. Or she is work on the project instead of she is working on the project. The structure is always the correct form of be plus the verb with ing.
Let us do a quick comparison exercise. I will say a sentence and think about whether it sounds correct or if something is off. Ready? Here is the first one. We are needing more information before we can proceed.
That one sounds off. Need is a state verb, so it should be, we need more information before we can proceed.
Good. How about this one? The meeting starts in 10 minutes.
That sounds correct. Start with a scheduled event uses present simple, so the meeting starts is perfect.
What about this? I am not understanding what you mean.
That could go either way, actually. Understand is typically a state verb, so usually we would say, I do not understand what you mean. However, in some contexts, especially when expressing frustration or difficulty in a process of trying to understand, I am not understanding can be used. But for most business contexts, I do not understand is safer and more standard.
Interesting. That shows how language is not always black and white. Now, how about this one? Currently, the sales team prepares the quarterly report.
That one needs a correction. The word currently signals that this is happening right now, so it should be, currently, the sales team is preparing the quarterly report.
And one more. Our supplier delivers components every Tuesday.
That is correct. This is describing a regular, scheduled action, so present simple is appropriate. Our supplier delivers components every Tuesday.
This exercise really highlights how these small choices affect your professional communication. When you use the tenses correctly, your English sounds polished and confident.
Now, I want to spend some time on specific business situations where tense choice really matters. Let us start with giving opinions and making suggestions in meetings.
Great idea, Sophie. When you share your opinion, you typically use present simple. For example, I think we should reconsider the timeline. Or, I believe this approach will be more effective. Or, in my view, the data shows a clear trend. All of these use present simple because think, believe, and shows in this context are describing states or facts.
But when you are describing what is happening in relation to your opinion, you might add present continuous. For instance, I think we should pause because the team is struggling with the current workload. Or, I believe the delay is occurring because we are waiting for client approval.
And when you are making suggestions for immediate action, present continuous can be useful too. You might say, we are looking at a tight deadline here, so I suggest we prioritize the critical tasks. The phrase, we are looking at, sets the scene for your suggestion.
Let us also consider how to report information in meetings. If you are sharing data or facts, you use present simple. The data shows a 10% increase. Our analysis indicates strong demand. The report reveals some concerning trends. But if you are describing your current process, you switch to present continuous. We are analyzing the data right now. The team is investigating the cause. I am reviewing the feedback from customers.
And for describing processes and procedures, which comes up a lot in business, you primarily use present simple. This is how you explain how things work, how systems operate, or how tasks are completed. For example, first, we receive the order from the client. Then, the warehouse team processes the shipment. Finally, logistics arranges delivery. Each step uses present simple because you are describing a standard process.
However, if you are explaining changes being made to a process, present continuous comes in. We are updating our procedures this quarter. We are moving to a new system. We are changing how we handle customer inquiries. These describe ongoing changes, not the standard process.
This distinction is so important in business because you often need to describe both how things normally work and what is changing.
Alex, now let us talk about negotiations and discussions, because these are high-stakes situations where your language needs to be precise.
In negotiations, you might use present simple to state your position clearly. We require a minimum order quantity of 500 units. Our standard terms include 30-day payment. We expect delivery within 2 weeks of order confirmation. These statements are firm and clear.
But you might use present continuous to show flexibility or to describe the negotiation process itself. We are considering your proposal. We are reviewing the terms you have suggested. We are working toward a solution that benefits both parties. This language sounds more collaborative and open.
And when you want to describe what each party is doing in the negotiation, present continuous is natural. You are asking for a significant discount. We are offering competitive pricing. Both sides are trying to find common ground.
That is really helpful because tone matters so much in negotiations. The tenses you choose can make you sound either rigid or collaborative.
Let me give another example from client communications. Suppose a client asks about the status of their order. You might write, "Thank you for your inquiry. Our logistics team is processing your order, and we expect it to ship within the next 2 business days. We send tracking information as soon as the shipment leaves our warehouse."
In that response, is present continuous because it is an ongoing activity happening right now with this specific order. Expect is present simple as a state verb, and send is present simple because it describes the standard procedure, what we always do.
And if there is a delay, you might write, "I want to inform you that we are experiencing slight delays due to high demand. We are working to resolve this as quickly as possible and appreciate your patience. Our team prioritizes orders based on urgency, and yours is in the queue."
Again, experiencing and working are present continuous for current temporary situations. Prioritizes is present simple because it describes standard policy.
Now, as we start to wrap up this episode, let us summarize the key points in a natural way.
So, we have covered a lot of ground today. The present simple is your foundation for talking about facts, regular activities, general truths, and standard procedures in business. You use it to describe what companies do, what your role involves, how processes work, and scheduled events. It is also the correct choice for most state verbs, like think, know, believe, want, need, and understand.
The present continuous is your tool for talking about things happening right now or during this current period. You use it for status updates, ongoing projects, temporary situations, and activities in progress. It works with action verbs and often appears with words like currently, right now, at the moment, and this week.
And the real skill is learning to combine these tenses naturally, using present simple for the stable, permanent, or general information, and present continuous for the dynamic, current, or temporary information.
We also talked about common mistakes, like using continuous forms with state verbs, forgetting the S ending in third-person present simple, and choosing the wrong tense for the context. Being aware of these errors will help you catch them in your own speaking and writing.
Now, here is my suggestion for practicing what we have discussed today. Over the next week, pay attention to the emails you write and the meetings you attend. Notice when you use present simple and when you use present continuous. Ask yourself, am I describing a general fact or a current activity? Am I using a state verb or an action verb? This kind of awareness is incredibly valuable.
And do not worry if you make mistakes. That is completely normal, and it is part of the learning process. The important thing is to keep noticing, keep practicing, and keep improving. Your business English will become more natural and more confident over time.
I completely agree, Alex. And remember, the goal is not to sound like a textbook. The goal is to communicate clearly and professionally with your colleagues, clients, and partners. When you use present tenses correctly, your message comes across more clearly and you sound more credible.
So thank you for joining us today. We hope this episode helps you feel more confident using the present tense in your professional communication. Whether you are writing emails, participating in meetings, or having conversations with clients, these tenses are your tools for expressing what is happening in your business world.
Keep practicing, stay curious about the language you hear and read around you, and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, Take care and keep improving your business English one conversation at a time.